Well, hello everyone. Just a short introduction. We will talk about the experience-enabled scorecard methodology I have developed last year. Who am I? I'm Martin. I'm Martin Gassner. My background is a designer, and I'm working as managing director and ASG impact lead at Accenture. I'm in the industry now for more than 25 years, mostly working on digital products, ecosystems, sometimes also digital communication, with a strong automotive background, work for a lot of automotive clients. Well, what do I love? I love building and leading successful teams, which means creating a safe space for thinking, designing, experimenting, crafting, having fun together, to create great experiences for users out there. These days, experience is everything. We are living in the experience economy, and if experience of a product or service is not good, it will lose, because there are big benchmarks out there and coming every day where products or brands succeed to create great experiences. But what makes a great user experience? A really great user experience starts by putting humans at the center, starting with the humans, with their expectations, with their needs, understanding what we want to solve, and when we have understood this, then beginning with designing experience and working backwards through technology and needed processes, and never the other way around, which was done a long time, but we started with technology and processes and we forgot the user. And this is important if you want to get into a business of experience in the experience economy today. We have different levels of experience design maturity to succeed to a great digital customer experience. And so we have this kind of ladder, and I think a lot of you are working for clients, are still on client side. Quite often we are not yet where we should go. And we look on this kind of ladder of experience maturity, there's often a long way to go. And this is a little bit about the talk today, to find out where we are and where we want to go. Why this is important? When we look out in a lot of digital products and services out there, and we take this Maslow's pyramid of UX, we see quite a lot of services, products, platforms are quite here. This is, I would say, the minimum expected user experience standard. The platforms are somehow working, very usable, yeah, but where we want to go to really make a difference with the experience is really to make these experiences pleasurable, meaningful, that it really gets to something we love to use and we use a lot. My question is, what I have at the moment is, what enables us to develop digital products with a great user experience? And for sure, everybody knows we have this double diamond, we have design thinking, we have design process in place, we have clearly defined roles. We know first doing the right thing, finding out what are the insights, what we have to solve. When we have already processes in place, doing things right, well, we know all that. It's a bit boring because it's nothing new. But still, we see a lot of experiences are not crafted well, or the teams are not enabled to do that. And therefore, we have analyzed 7 enablers. We support the development of high experience quality. So it's a multi-dimensional view, what it is needed for teams, for people, for companies to develop or to be enabled to develop a high experience quality. And I will show you now first the 7 enablers we have identified, which I think are quite important to have in mind. And then let's see where we go from there. So the first thing is user research and testing. It's all about understanding what the real problem is, what the real user needs is. And that is something that you have to have in place if you want to create a great experience. The next one is to have a digital experience strategy or an experience strategy. If for teams or companies, it's not clear what their experience strategy is, we don't have this North Star, we are not aligned, we don't know where to go, or we have different understanding on where to go. So experience strategy needed to be in place to come to a maturity that enables high experience quality. The next thing is innovation imperative. That means things are changing so fast. We talk about here at Song, we say it's a speed of life. Things are changing much quicker and faster as most of the companies or products are doing. So the customers are on a continuous move. And that means for us, if we want to be relevant tomorrow, we need a kind of a structured innovation process as part of our service and product development process to keep up with that pace, not to create outdated projects or programs or products. Innovation imperative is part of that what the team needs today. For sure, and that is, I think, almost clear, team setup and way of working. This is all about culture in the team, how we work together, what are the shared values working together, what are also kind of the right mindset, what's the working culture, and what are the rituals when the people work together. The fifth dimension, this is more, I would say, kind of the second part of this diamond. When you create and build the products, is the design ecosystem. So it's kind of an enabler on the way of working, on the tool sets, on the processes, what designers needs in a product development process. It's also on how to work together with the developers. That should be also defined this kind of design ecosystem. And for sure, we have the same also for front-end ecosystem, because building experiences is not only a designer topic, it's a topic for a cross-functional team. It's the same also for developers, because developers also have a big influence of how the experience of digital products and services are feeling. So, and even also the developers, we also need the ecosystem, how we can work best, how we can have a good ergonomics on how we code, and also how we interact with all the other stakeholders in a product team, for example. And the last one is the content ecosystem, because content is quite important, and quite often what I have observed in the past, quite often underestimated the importance of content, or also what does it mean to generate content, especially today where we have personalized services, where we have so many channels and touch points. So content quite often is underestimated. There are a lot of possibilities how to organize and develop and design this better. And then these enablers are good in place when it gets strong. And so I have a hypothesis: the higher the maturity of enablers, the higher the probability that a great experience can be developed. It's not a guarantee for a great experience, but it's more probable that it will happen. Or vice versa, if the maturity of these enablers is low, you can send in the best people, it will be quite hard to create great experiences. When I asked, what if we score the maturity of this 7 experience enabler, to get this kind of a holistic view about these dimensions and an understanding how we play together, or where we are mature and not so mature. And therefore, I developed this kind of model. So the model is I come from these dimensions and build up kind of interview format, which is in kind of Excel sheet. So we have here in the first column, we have dimensions with a short explanation what the dimension is about. Then we have a building block, so really detailed questions that get really material to a real issue, which when in interviews we identify, is this building block not in place, somehow started, or already fully implemented. And we try all the time to look from 2 directions. One is, what bring I in as a person with my team, and what is the environment where I am in. For example, if we have a building block, what will mean, for example, a research mindset, maybe me and my team, we bring in a really strong research mindset, but maybe a client says, oh, no, we don't do research. I know everything already. Then maybe we bring in a value of 2, fully implemented, but the situation is not in place or not accepted, then it will minimize it to a 1. So will mean the maturity of this certain building block is not so high. And this goes through the whole dimensions. And you see here already with this part of interview I did with somebody, and then at the end you get a holistic view on or overview on how is the maturity of the different dimensions. You have values here, you get an overall score, it's also marked here, but it's not about the overall score, it's even a kind of a relative score, so it's not absolute that you can compare this interview with this interview, but it gives you already a direction and a feeling what's happening. So the question is, what can you use this tool for? For example, you can really easy, on a very quick way, identify strengths and weaknesses of your program where you're working in. You can identify discussion points for the teams or for other stakeholders to identify how can we improve parts of a program which are hindering us at the moment, or which are barriers, which doesn't make us happy, or get the data points to get in this discussion. And it's not just a gut feeling or just complaining all the shit here. You can then say, exactly here we have weakness, we identified this and that, can change that. You can, if you have a program with different teams and streams, and they may have different results in this assessment, you can then identify best practices and learn from other teams, for example. Because if one team is very strong in some dimensions and you are not, you can approach them and discuss with them what are they doing better, that they perceive the maturity so much higher than the other team. And for sure, it's much more easier to convince stakeholders, so sponsors of a program or managers, what could be changed in the program for to enable the program for better. Because at the end, we all have the same goal: build efficient, great experiences and having fun doing that. And that means you can track also the development of the maturity of your program over the time. If you do, for example, these assessments every 6 months, then you see what has improved, what not, where we have to adjust our things. And for you get a really holistic understanding of your program and understand it as a living system, and understand that the different dimensions have to play together to create great products or great industries. How can this look like? And I have an example here with me where I applied the Scorecard on a big program of a big financial industry client, where I did, I think in this case, I did 16 interviews in this setup. So the setup of interview group have been 16 diverse people on the client program. And what is important, and you see it in a second, the 16 people have been not only a balanced gender equality, it has quite diverse. So I think the gender equality is one thing, but also when it comes to nationalities, also are we junior or senior, I think very important is to have a really good mix of people and disciplines to get to meaningful results. What was also given with this sample group, half of them have been client employees in different roles working in this context, and the other half of people have been additional external agency partners and freelancers with different roles. And this was a really big program where a lot of teams are working on. We are part of a whole experience development, will mean design and build development people on client side, but we're augmented with external teams, and we all work together in this kind of experience factory, so to say. And that was quite interesting, because when we look into the results that I want to show you now, the overall score over all 16 interviews was quite good. A score of 66% maturity sounds to me already good. So when we look on the overall score, we see very strong maturity, especially in the fields of team setup and way of working. Design ecosystem was quite high. Front-end ecosystem was also high. A very weak maturity overall was in the innovation imperative, which is really quite low. But the more interesting thing comes when we start to compare the results along the different interviews. Therefore, I put it all together, and then you identify interesting things. For example, we see clear clusters in the high here, front-end design, team setup, that just prove what we have already identified. The overall thing is clear that they are high. But interesting was also user research and testing, content ecosystem. It was less evident. So you have already a spread here, and the focus is in the middle. But very interesting was digital experience strategy and innovation imperative. You have a really wide spread of the different perceptions in the interview. So, for example, digital experience strategy is going from 0 to 100, or from 0 to 1. So completely different opinions about that. Same with innovation imperative. And this is, I think, where it starts getting interesting. You see it once again on this thing. So this is the overview on all the 16 interviews. And you see it starts from a perception that everything seems to be perfect to less than 50% maturity, where people see it completely different, or not completely, but very, very different to the highest thing, and everything in between is distributed. But is, I think, already quite meaningful that there is a situation where it needs some discussions. So when I said, do you see any patterns? When you look on all these spider diagrams, and there are patterns. That's also interesting, because when we overlay it, we see this kind of 4 archetypes. And that was also interesting, because I know who I interviewed. So the first archetype, I call them the proud informed. That have been 4 of the 16 people. And most of them, I think 3 from the 4, have been clients, or from the client side. They had high or very high scores in almost all dimensions. I think it's coming from because they have more internal insights in the client organization, and for sure also in the strategy and experience strategy. But I also think they have been sometimes less critical, because they know where they started a couple of years before, and compared to that situation, they did already quite well on their journey. But therefore, we often don't see what still has to be improved. Then we have the out cluster. I call it the aligned gang. These have been 6 of 16 people with a quite similar pattern or perception of the whole program. They have high to very high scores in quite a lot of, or most dimensions. So they are really deep in the program and the experience they have the program building with products and services. I have a very low score in the innovation dimension, very, very low. That is crucial, and this was already also very clearly stated in the interviews. And I think innovation process is part of the product development. Interesting was they have a very widespread in the strategy dimension, and they should know the strategy, because when we are building the products and the services, and it's not clear what's the experience strategy, how do we know how to decide in certain moments when we go this way or that way? They all have been very close to program streams and implementation. So we have not been on this kind of upper management level who oversees the whole thing. We really had the daily work. And we have been mostly external partners. That also mean we were coming from agencies, and sometimes they know even a better style, how to work, or better approach or ways of work as be part of a big program in a big corporate. So the first group was the critical stakeholders that have been 2 of the 16 people. And this has been from client side, and we have been kind of sponsors or managers. So they see, because they see where our good results, we had this high values here, but it was also interesting that when it comes to team setup and way of working, they had a more critical view. So they even expect more from the teams. For example, the teams have rated with quite high, but management not as high. For sure, they have a helicopter view on the program. But it was also interesting because they said some things are in place that was not at all perceived by others in that way. And the fourth archetype was, I call them the more expect. 4 out of 16 people, also mostly from client side. And they also had the perception the program is running well, but they have been quite often subject matter experts, for example, research or for content or for strategy. They have perceived that the program where expertise is not as well seen as they wish, as they should be part of a program. It was also interesting to see their perception. To wrap it up, overall score in this program is already quite good, in some enabler dimensions even very good. But we see a systemic implementation of an innovation process is completely missing. It's not in place, and that should be solved. Or it's even not perceived, because there is innovation departments in that company, but they are completely decoupled from the people who are actually developing the digital product. And so the question is also how you bring innovation into real life and not only in an ivory tower. When we also have perceived that user research and testing is not consequently implemented as it should be, or sometimes it's too much decoupled from product teams. I had one interviewing, got the information where somebody said, yeah, there's a lot of user research. They have great insights, but we get the reports 3 months after we have launched our service. So that is, I think, easy to solve, is just to connect this department early in the product development process together with product teams to fuel the product conception and design with the insights, analysis, what we have done in another place. And the maturity of experience strategy and innovation imperative has very widespread. Well, for digital experience strategy, I would say there are some communication gaps on these topics, because actually there exists this kind of experience strategy, but it was not clearly communicated. So a lot of people in the program, they just didn't know about. So it was somewhere in a locker on a manager side, but not where it should be, or it was not clearly communicated. And same of this innovation imperative. For sure, this big company has also this kind of innovation labs, but we're completely decoupled from the real product development, and therefore this also could be solved. That means doing this kind of assessment enables to create afterwards workshop formats with all the involved people and stakeholders, and makes it clear on what to discuss and what to improve. And you can get to this knowledge, what has to be touched in a quite quick way, as I said before, with a couple of interviews with this analysis. If you want even deep dive on the method, there is a Medium article on that. And if you like it, I would also like if you share it in social networks like LinkedIn, or if you get in touch with me if you want to know more, or if you want to have this kind of assessment also with your company. We do that with a lot of our clients. So that was it from my side, almost in time.